Hey y'all, Michelle here with My Designs in the Chaos, where it's my goal to develop, encourage, and grow your crafting talents and confidence. And this month, school is back in session. Crafters school, that is. And today, we're going to be playing with infusible ink and some glitter heat transfer vinyl. For this project, I'm really excited because we're going to be actually combining heat transfer vinyl as well as infusible ink to get a really fun look on our gray t-shirt. Let's take a moment and look at the supplies that we're going to need for today's project. So for today's project, we're going to want to have a darker colored shirt. That's why I went with gray. It's what I had on hand. But the cool thing is that we're actually going to be able to use this infusible ink on a darker colored shirt. This shirt, it doesn't matter if it's polyester or cotton because we're going to actually be using heat transfer vinyl, and then we're going to be putting the infusible ink onto the vinyl itself. So the shirt, totally fine, doesn't really matter. Then I'm going to have a sheet of glitter heat transfer vinyl, and then I'm also going to be using infusible ink. I'm going to be using this green color. It doesn't look very green here, but this is the one that we're going to be using for our design here on the shirt. And then we're also going to want to make sure that we have our weeding tools such as our pick, and then I also like to have my tweezers in case I need those for any little small pieces. You can also keep on hand one of these little weeding tools. You can also keep on hand some baby powder. One of our tips and hacks for easily weeding heat transfer vinyl that's glitter is using a little bit of baby powder, and I'll show you what I mean with that. Let's go ahead and let's get started. Now, the really cool thing about today's project is that it doesn't matter what the blend of your shirt is because we're going to actually be applying vinyl to the shirt, and then we're going to be adding the infusible ink onto the vinyl itself. No worries on what your thread count is or anything like that. So now at this point we've gathered all of our supplies. The first thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and we need to cut our infusible ink. So I'm going to go ahead and lay that out onto my cutting mat now, and then head over to my machine and cut it out. I'm actually going to be cutting the entire design in my glitter heat transfer vinyl, and then I'm only going to cut in my infusible ink the sections that I want to turn to this bright green kind of marbled color. Now, when I'm sending this design to cut, I want to make sure that I don't change the size of my design at all in between cutting it on both of these two different elements, because otherwise then it will be off. So let's head over to our machine. I'm going to make sure to mirror my image for both elements that I'm going to be cutting. So again, I'm going to cut the full design on the white glitter, and then I'm only going to cut the pieces that I actually want to change colors on my infusible ink. So again though, I'm going to mirror it on both of my items, so that way when I apply it, it's applied on the right direction. Okay, let's go head over to our cutting machine now so that we can cut out our infusible ink. Just a reminder, when you're cutting your infusible ink, you want the side that is the paper looking side, that's going to go face up on your mat, and this back shiny side is what's going to go face down. When you're cutting your glitter, the side that looks really glittery, that's the side that's going to go face down. The side that looks a little more dull, you can also peel it off right here at the corner to figure out which side has the carrier sheet on it. But the carrier sheet side, that's going to go face down, which is typically the side that is a little more shiny. That side is going to go face down, and then the dull side is where we're going to actually cut the vinyl, which is why it has to be mirrored, because we're going to flip it over to actually apply it. Okay, I'll see you over at our cutting machine. Here's a pro tip for you. Once you've cut your design, and you can hear my machine going in the background, but once you've cut your design, if you're not 100% sure if it cut all the way, you can always peel up that end corner to see if it worked before you unload it. That way, if it didn't work, you can reload it again and have it cut through, and that way it won't move in position at all. But again, make sure that you do that before you unload it. So once it's finished, check that corner to make sure it cut. If it didn't, just hit send or make it again in your software and it'll take it from the same exact spot. So hopefully that tip helps you out. Here's a tip for you. If you aren't sure which setting to cut your vinyl on, you can always do a test cut in the top corner of whatever it is that you're cutting, whether it's vinyl, paper, infusible ink. Just do a little triangle with a little square or a little circle around it, and that way you can easily check, is it at the right setting for that particular material? And that way you don't waste a whole sheet of vinyl. Test cuts can be lifesavers, trust me. Okay, now that we have everything cut on our machine, it's time for us to weed our design, which just means that we're going to be removing all the vinyl and all the infusible ink that we don't want attached onto our finished product. You can absolutely do this on your cutting mat, or you can tape it down to your desk. That infusible ink does like to roll up, so taping it down is probably the route that I'm going to go, but it's totally up to you. I encourage you to get in there, try it out, and see what system works best for you whenever you're weeding. Now, we will be weeding some glitter heat transfer, so we're going to be using some of the tips from our weeding tips video. If you haven't had a chance to check that one out, make sure you head over there and watch that one. Okay, let's get to weeding. Another pro tip that I have for you, while you're weeding, go ahead and turn your heating element on. That way, by the time you're ready to press it and apply it to your finished project, it's already heated up and you're not having to stand there and wait and wait and wait and wait. So I'm going to go turn that on before I start weeding, and then we'll go ahead and weed out our design, and then the fun part comes where we get to actually layer and press that infusible ink onto the vinyl on our shirt. Let's take a look at this baby powder trick. You can sprinkle a little bit of baby powder onto the back of your heat transfer vinyl, and it will make the lines in your design magically appear. Makes it way easier for you to be able to see what your design looks like. You can also print out a picture of what your design looks like. That'll make it so much easier to be able to weed as well, because you know what's going where. Also, don't forget, if you want, you can trim off the extra pieces that you didn't use or that you didn't cut on your infusible ink and on your vinyl. That way you can save them as a scrap for a different project. As you're weeding the infusible ink, it's gonna feel really thick and like paper. Don't worry, you're not doing anything wrong. That's exactly what it's supposed to feel like. Just make sure you're peeling away everything off of that back clear sheet that's sticky. The infusible ink itself is not actually sticky. Now we have both sections of our project are weeded out and ready to go. We're gonna head over to the heat press, which has already been preheating, which has been turned up to 400 so that we can go ahead and press our items onto our shirt. So I'll meet you over at the heat press. Okay, so here we are at the heat press. I already have it preheated to 400 and I have my t-shirt here. So what I'm gonna do first of all is I'm actually gonna go ahead and make sure that that collar is not under the press part. And then I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just going to pre-press my shirt, which means I'm just going to press it for a couple seconds to make sure all the moisture is removed out of it, to make sure that it's just totally dry and ready to go for my infusible ink to be applied. Here's a tip for you. If you struggle with getting your design centered, I wanna show you what I do that it's my favorite way to get things centered because I'm not really a person who uses a ruler a lot. I like to eyeball things. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually just fold my shirt in half and then put it here on the press. So then I know exactly where the middle is. And that's gonna give me a crease on the shirt. So see? So now I know the middle is right on that line. I also am going to use my fingertip rule, which is 3 fingertips for an adult size shirt. So the top of my design is going to be at least 3 fingertips down from the collar. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move my collar up here onto my press. I'm going to make sure that center seam, that center crease is right in the middle. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press that glitter vinyl first onto my shirt. So I'm going to take my vinyl, I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm doing this just to make sure it's centered. And so I'm going to use this center crease and I'm going to line it up with this center crease. I'm going to use that 3 fingertip rule. I'm going to put it down just a little bit, make sure that they are in line. Now, I also have a Teflon sheet across the top of my press, and I have that just to make sure that the vinyl doesn't burn. Because it is at such a high temperature, I'm only going to need to press it here for just like 1 to 2 seconds to make sure that it attaches to the shirt. So that's what I'm going to do now, is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it a quick press. Now, you don't have to press it for the full time because remember, we're going to be pressing it again whenever we apply the infusible ink. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove my carrier sheet now. And that vinyl is actually now attached to my shirt. From here, I'm going to take this infusible ink that I have that's weeded out, and I want to make sure it's lined up exactly in line with that vinyl. Now you can also use heat tape if you would like to make sure that it's applied down to your shirt. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here as well. I'm just going to make sure that it's placed in the exact location. I'm going to go ahead and put a little piece of heat tape on there and then trim it off. And then I want to make sure that it's aligned on the top part as well. That's another reason why you want to make sure on your first press you don't press it for too long, because there will be a little bit of shrinkage with the vinyl. So just make sure on your first time that you press it, it's only for a few seconds, because you want to make sure that they both line up. Now that you have them both lined up with each other, it's time for us to go ahead and place that paper that came with the infusible ink here on top of the infusible ink. So we're going to take that little piece of paper that came in that packaging and we're going to place it just right here on top. And then from here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press it for a full 30 seconds. Whew, that heat press is hot. Be careful you don't burn yourself. So now we're going to go ahead and lift it open. I'm going to remove this sheet. Be careful, it is super, super hot and you could very easily burn yourself, not necessarily on the plate, but on this paper. So just make sure that you let it cool off for a minute, no matter which type of press you're using, an easy press or a heat press or an iron, it does get very, very hot. If you're using an easy press or an iron, make sure you don't move it around. Make sure it stays in one position. Okay, are we ready to see what it looks like? Here we go. Ooh, turned out so cute. Okay, so you can see here, this is the paper. None of the ink is left there on the paper, but look at how beautiful it turned out onto our shirt. Isn't that adorable? I'm in love. Okay, let's go ahead and let's head over to our desk and look at it a little bit better. And let's talk about some of tips, tricks, and other things that you need to know. Okay, I could not resist. Didn't it just turn out so cute? It really helps take that glitter vinyl to a whole nother level. So a couple things to remember. Number one, the first time you put that glitter vinyl onto your shirt, only press it for a few seconds. Otherwise, it will shrink too much and the infusible ink won't line up exactly with your design. You could also shift your infusible ink a little bit to the side and give a little bit of a shadow effect. That's kind of a cool way to look at it as well. Make sure your heat press is turned on to 400. Don't move your heat press around. And remember, have fun and get creative. Make this project your own. Applying it to the vinyl rather than applying it to the shirt that's 100% cotton really made the infusible ink pop. So if you don't necessarily have a polyester shirt or a Cricut approved blank, make sure to use this technique on applying it to the vinyl. Plus, it'll make your infusible ink super, super shiny and glittery and sparkly. Who doesn't love that? I can't wait to see what you do with this idea of layering infusible ink on glitter vinyl. And don't forget, you can do it on any color shirt because the infusible ink is actually going onto the vinyl rather than the shirt itself. Make sure you come share your creations with us over inside our Facebook community. And I would love to hear from you below if you have any questions or share with me what project you're going to use this technique on next. Until next time, I encourage you to stop just collecting and start actually creating. And remember, there's no wrong way to craft. I'll see you back next time. Bye! I'm going to be cutting my infusible ink. I'm also going to be cutting my glitter heat transfer vinyl. I love you too, sweetie. It's really handy. You can sprinkle a tiny bit of baby powder onto the back of your heat transfer vinyl. When working with infusible vinyl, tips, tricks, and other things that you need to know when working with infusible vinyl.